Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Guests and Gusto, SCAD's virtual series of conversations and digital content with the creators and innovators who are remaking culture. My name's Carl Rouse. I'm the Associate Dean of School of Entertainment Arts here at SCAD, and I'm delighted today to be joined by a family favourite, I think it's fair to say, and that is Michelle Cole. Michelle's known for creating vibrant and evocative designs, and we think one of the most important costume designers out there working today. And that's why it's your third time back with us, I believe, actually, Michelle, which is fantastic. So thank you so much for that. But for the past 3 decades, Michelle's work has been featured in groundbreaking TV shows such as In Living Colour, most recently with Blackish, Grownish, and Black AF. Hashtag Black AF, it's worth saying. Michelle's received 4 Emmy nominations for her work on In Living Colour and 2 additional Emmy nominations for the LA Confidential Impact Award in the costume designer category for her work on Blackish. But also excitingly, and I want to talk a bit more about this today, Michelle, because we've not looked at this previously, but your work styling some of those huge stars out there, such as Madonna, such as Snoop Dogg, Stevie Wonder. So we want to hear a little bit more about that today as well as we can. Miles Davis as well. We'll take a look at some of that in action with the commercials we're going to look at. But before we get going and before we fully welcome Michelle to come and join us, we've got a poll question today and we have a prize. So today you could win Creating the Illusion, a fashionable history of Hollywood costume designers. So if you want to take part in that, you can select which transforming career achievement you'd like to hear more about from Michelle's work. So that's the cataloguing of Michelle's work, Michelle's friendship with Kenya Barris, or the 1991 Chanel show inspired by Michelle's work, or her 6 Emmy nominations. So vote for that now, and we'll come back to the questions later on when you'll have your opportunity to put your questions directly to Michelle. So feel free to type those into the Q&A and we'll come back to those towards the end of the chat. So all that said, welcome, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I'm so excited about doing this. Thank you, Carl.
It's a pleasure to have you back with us. Tell us, where are you now? Are you at home or are you away? I know you was going to go up to the cabin, I believe.
Yes, I'm home now and with my 2 dogs. So we probably will head out maybe tomorrow or the next day and head up to the mountains again. So that's our thing. It's going along the coast of California. So that's hopefully to do that trip. Yeah.
And so how has life been for you on lockdown? How have you been keeping yourself busy? Because I know you have been incredibly busy. Tell us what you've been up to.
I've been really, really busy with the Costume Designers Guild. I'm a board member. And we're doing a lot of committees right now. So I'm on the diversity committee, and doing a lot of work with the Black Lives Matter, and just doing a lot of work. And then also I'm on a board for homelessness as well in Los Angeles, St. Joseph. So that's one of my big projects. So I keep really, really busy trying. And then also classes. I love young people, love doing this. And so this is a lot of fun as well. So just keeping really busy, trying to be aware, trying to keep on top of it. And also talking with family. My niece was here yesterday. She's 19 in college. So she came over yesterday. And so we hung out a little bit with our mask on.
So has this been helpful in a way? I mean, all of those really valuable, important projects,
Absolutely.
Has this given you a chance to recharge maybe?
Yes, and also to give back. I mean, and also to be on a personal level, making phone calls. I had a student the other day. I get a lot of calls. People call me. A lot of designers will say, why don't you call Michelle Cole? So a lot of students will call me getting their masters. And so I'll take like an hour and a half and to talk to them and just, go through it. And we'll Zoom or we'll either FaceTime or something like that. But I really enjoy of telling them like the truth of what this business is really like, like it is a lot of hard work. It is tough. And, but I enjoy talking to them straight. Cause I don't think when I first started, my parent, a long time ago, my parents were educators. So they didn't know anything about Hollywood. They didn't know how to get into Hollywood. So I'm able to do that, hopefully to teach others, to let them know what it's like.
I believe you've got a guest come to join you there.
I did. I closed the door on her, and she my dog Cocoa Puff, she was not having it. She came all around the house to come in.
We enjoy special guests. The pets are very welcome. So don't you?
Sorry about that.
I have 2 dogs in here too, but mine have gone to sleep at the moment. So
Yeah.
tell us though, how do you feel about getting back to work? When do you think you'll be able to get back to work?
Um, I don't know because we have to take tests and there's a lot of work for us. There's a lot of work for us to do before we go back. We have to set up our offices. We have to set up everything. So take tests, do all of it. So I think it's going to be very involved of how we go back because our safety, our actors' safeties are important. Our safety is important. So I don't know. And right now our state's pretty high. California's pretty high. So so we have to be really careful. I'm sure our producers are all concerned and talking.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
have you been involved in that? I mean, we had Salvador come and talk to us recently about
Yeah.
getting back safely and what that might look like. Have you been involved in those conversations, or are you listening to them and seeing how they unfold?
I'm listening to them. He's he's the president of the guild. So he's totally in all those meetings. And I think I heard once where they said their 1 week was 70 something hours just in meetings with all the different unions and so they're very involved meetings and he's in them a lot. So when Sal tells me I can go to work, then I can go to work. But I know it's very involved with them and he's in every meeting. Yeah.
But tell us, because I mean, we've been in this remarkable moment, haven't we, of
Yes.
COVID and how strange and surreal. And
Yes.
I mean, I'm back in the UK at the moment, and I took an international flight, recently.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the most surreal experiences, I think, other than 9/11. I was living in New York when 9/11 happened, and that's the closest thing that I can imagine. But we've had this very surreal time, and then on top of it now we've had the protests, the Black Lives Matter protests, at this real sort of tension moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been involved in that. Tell us in what ways, what kind of conversations have you been having, and how's that manifested?
I'm working with I think part of our Costume Designers Guild, we're in different committees, and I'm in a committee with Dana Woods, and it's the diversity committee which Sal has set up with her. So I'm in that meeting, which I love. I mean, we're having these conversations, and it's fresh. I mean, it's only been 3 or 4 weeks, and it's a lot of people, and everybody wants to do something now. And I think that is what's so important is that everybody's like, how can, because we're not going to fix the situation overnight. But it's also moving forward of teaching others how we're going to move this forward. The police brutality as a Costume Designers Guild, being a Black costume designer, hearing other people's stories. I've been a designer 40 years. I was here, when it was a few of us, and it was, very hard. And so, but it's telling those stories to other designers and other as a community of letting them know what we went through. And I think it's like, Ruth Carter, Sharon Davis, Francine Jameson, there was, Ceci, there was quite a few of us when we first started. So I think it's great to hear their stories. And I love the passion of them going out there to protest and getting the Black movies on, Black poetry. I mean, so it's social media. So I'm really learning from them, watching this group, come together as young voices and out there marching. So I'm really, really proud to be a part of this. And then also there's another part that I'm working with 705, our local 705, and that is we're trying to get mentor programs. And so where we can go out to high schools. And so we can educate them that there are all these faces, brown skin, Asians, Blacks, all of us, and that we're all behind the camera, and that, the diversity of our community in costume designing and costuming. So we're also starting that program. So there's a lot of different things really happening in the costume for 705 and 892. Far as those two unions are concerned, but it's somewhat an exciting time, because the voices need to be heard, and this, unfortunately, this situation occurred, but we have to hear these voices now. So I think it's very important that we are paying attention,
Absolutely.
and that we will make a change, and that we hope, and that this will make a change, and we will do this all together.
Well, that's what I'm interested in as well. Is what would we want that change to look like? Is it about having more people of color working in areas such as this, so that, you know, I mean, you work on so many fantastic, really important shows that are currently reflecting, you know, actors of color,
Mm-hmm.
storytellers of color,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is so important and something that's been, you know, missing for a very, very long time. Is it that you want more, you know, really strong, empowered people like yourself who can tell those stories in those wonderful, vibrant ways?
You said it perfectly, Carl. I mean, I think that's the direction we all want to go into. Diversity is opening the doors for Blacks, you know, and most of the time when I was coming up, it took me 20 years to cross over to do my first, like, white show, I guess you would call it, but it took me 20 years because I was doing Martin Lawrence and Living Color, Bernie Mac, all these different shows. And then finally, I had two creators that hired me to come over to my first show, NBC network. So it is, you know, helping. Hopefully, you don't have to do that again. We don't have to go 20 years to do that again. So, and we also want to have good costumers and good costume designers out there. So that's what I think we're really concentrating on, is that it's even ground, that it's all it's equal opportunity across the board, that we're all learning from this, and that we're opening the door. That I don't want to hear someone say to me, well, they're not in the union. Okay, let's get them in the union.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out. Let's figure this out. There's really good people out there that really want to do this. There are people of color that really want to do this. And a lot of people don't know, high schools and colleges and things kind of don't know there's this space behind it. There's all these spaces behind it that are talented. So I think that's the direction I think that we're moving into. I hope we are. I hope that we can widen this door. I think we're, Ruth Carter emailed me this morning, and we were talking about this morning, Zooming each other. There's something that we're thinking about doing, you know. So I think we're all busy trying to make a change. And again, this change is not gonna happen overnight, but we're moving forward, and I think we're gonna come out, I think, hopefully okay with all of us participating in this.
No, that's wonderful. And even moments like this, I think, help in a small way to make
Absolutely.
those kind of changes you're talking about, don't they?
Absolutely. And I hope that when someone leaves here today, I hope that I've made a deposit in someone's life out there, and giving them some type of hope that this is a great community. Costuming is a great community, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. And Sal Perez, I mean, we have a Latin president, you know, and I remember him. He used to pull for me. He was an assistant at a store in Melrose Place, and he would pull for me, and that was a long time ago. So to see him being the president is quite amazing. So I'm, you know, and we have a lot of people, so I'm happy for him.
Well, can we go right back to the start of your journey then? Let's go
Okay.
right back to where we first had this glimmer of, I might want to do this as a possibility. So that moment you're talking about right now that maybe people are having for themselves, let's think about it for what it was like for you. I seem to believe that the movie My Fair Lady played an important part. Is that correct? Tell us
Yes,
about
that's
that.
correct. When my father, he loved old movies. So that was one of our things that we did together. We would go to see old movies together. And there was an old theater, which is still there in Los Angeles. And we would see old movies. And then I went to go see, I was probably 14, 15, 16 around there, and went to go see My Fair Lady. And I love Audrey Hepburn. I mean, I just loved her, all of her classic pieces. And when I came out, I said, Dad, I think I want to be a costume designer. And no one, you know, no one knew about, like, I mean, I was a Black girl, didn't know anything about costume designing. I didn't know that was, you know, something I could thrive to do. And so my dad said, let's do it, you know. And so we started the sewing classes, and what did I have to do? And I started in theater in high school. And, you know, so from there, I went to college in Kentucky and graduated from Eastern Kentucky University, and a long time ago. And I majored in theater arts. And then my first play, when I got out of college, one of my first plays, I was an assistant designer with Garland Riddle on Young and the Restless. One of my first plays was My Fair Lady with his son, Rex Harrison's son. Rex is it? it was his son that was playing the lead, and so it came full circle for me. So I knew I was in the right place, and but from that point, from My Fair Lady, going then after college, I went into I would sew on the weekends. I loved to sew on the weekends, and I still loved theater. And so Garland Riddle was a costume designer on a play, a musical. I can't remember which one. And so he says, you've got some talent. And I was like, okay, and so he brought me in to do Young and the Restless. And that's how I started at Young and the Restless at CBS, the soap. And I really thought I had made it, because when I was in college, Young and the Restless was David Hasselhoff was the biggest thing.
David Hasselhoff, wasn't it?
It was David Hasselhoff or Billy D. Williams, Lady Sings the Blues. So it was, it was one of those. And so
how did that feel? That must have been remarkable. How did that feel for you as a young costume designer?
Oh, that was just so exciting. Like, I just smile now thinking about it, because it was so corny for me. Like, I thought, here I was writing, because back then you didn't have cell phones. I was writing all my college friends saying, I'm doing Young and the Restless, I'm doing Young and the Restless. So I thought that I had reached my peak. And I thought, this is it, So, and then I started, I met people, because you would meet people and connect with people, and you'd meet people. And I met this amazing woman from Australia, amazing taste. And she taught me how to eat sushi. She taught me Dior. She had, and her taste level was just incredible. And I got to work with her for years as an assistant stylist. And so that was my opening door to really couture and all the really high fashion. And then she retired, and then I took over her job at the production company I was working for. But I was doing back then those commercials of being with her. I was doing, Whitney Houston. There was Cindy Crawford, the Pepsis. We were working with big time production houses back then in the 80s.
Well,
so there was a lot. Pardon me?
Should we take a look at one of those commercials?
Yes, let's do.
I believe we've got one. Now, it is quite, it's from the internet, and it's quite, it's got a very 80s feel about it in terms of the quality of the recording. So my apologies in advance for that, but let's see if we can take a look at it. I love that. That's my era. That's my time. So
so 80s. It's so 80s.
How do you even begin to dress somebody like Whitney Houston? What goes through your mind when you're thinking, this is what I've got to do today?
Oh my God. She was so young, and she was so young, and we did a few commercials with her, and just delightful. So I think she made it really easy. We went to her hotel room, and usually there's like all these people around her and everything, but they weren't. It was just the stylist, myself, and that was it. There wasn't a manager. I don't believe there was a manager. We just went to the hotel room. So extremely kind, so young, and just so new at all of this, and but it was, so I think it was just her kindness, and she was so open and just would try anything on. I don't think the star thing had gotten to her, so she was still this young woman, starting her career, and an incredible voice. But yeah, I think she made it very, very easy. Very easy for us. And we had a great time doing it.
What do you do when you're styling somebody? And, you know, this is something I'm curious to know more about, because when we've had previous conversations, we've not really
Mhm.
gone into the whole styling part of it. But what is that process? What are you trying to do? Is it simply about making them look as good as you
Yeah.
think they can? I mean, what's the aim? How do you know it's been successful?
Well, I was working, we had worked with HCAM production, which is still around. They're still famous. They're still around. And in the 80s, you were working with commercials would take, I haven't done them in a while, but commercials back then were like a piece of art. You would take 2 to 3 weeks to do a commercial back then. Now, I don't think it is that long, and they were star driven. There was a lot of celebrities back then in the 80s because they were shot, they were videos,
Yeah,
so it was big videos, a lot of money. And so, and you had these concepts because you had to do something in 1 minute, or 30 seconds or 15 seconds. So it's pop up. You're working with the art director, pretty much with the production team, and it's pops of color. So they have boards, storyboards. I'm sure everybody's heard the storyboards, but the storyboards are there, and you're shopping. You're shopping for her. You're shopping for all these scenes, and it's pops, and it's just as you see, Diet Coke, Diet Coke, Diet Coke, and everything comes together, and so it is a process. What looks great on her, what the director wants. So it's very, very, and I think it has made me a very visual person because I was very young. I was in my early 20s. So it made me a vision person as far as from head to toe. This stylist was head to toe. And
yeah.
so from earrings to shoes to everything. And so I have become that creature in my own costume designing. So, but there's a lot of art. There was a lot of art directions in commercials back in the 80s when I was doing them. Mm-hmm.
And how do you work that then? I mean, is it a case of going and buying lots of clothes, researching lots of clothes, having them all to hand, or where do they come from?
Well, when you work, I think a lot of stylists do now probably, like they pull a lot. But back when I was doing it, it was pretty focused. Like we knew what we knew, and the times were different. It's been a while, and so we knew that we knew what we wanted, and so we would see things that we would like. We wouldn't overpull. We didn't have racks and racks. The stylist that I was working with at that time felt like that confused actors if you had too much. It kind of made that was her theory, was that it made you feel like you didn't know what you were kind of doing. So I've always, when I'm talking to even my own assistants now, I always say, just focus. I only need a half a rack. I don't need, this and that. So I always say, let's just focus on, this color, here's the colors of your walls. Because by this time when you're doing this, you have your sets, you have your plans, what colors are going into the sets. And so what type of clothing and your actor. But when you're dealing with celebrities, it is what they like. And we didn't have back then where you can do research on actors. If you know an actor's coming to your show, you can Google them and you can do all of this now. But you had to pretty much hopefully know that you had the right size. And you didn't have where you can kind of call friends and do this, or call other designers on shows saying, hey, what's Lawrence Fishburne sizes? It was a lot different then. So you had to trust your instincts. But I worked with the designer stylist that was very, didn't like to overpull. And she was very precise. And I enjoyed that because she had a direction. And I think that was very clear. So she wasn't all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that helped me in my own career too. Except I'm a little all over the place. I'm a little nuts.
I think you're very focused. From talking to you a lot this year, I've been very fortunate to interview you a lot this year, and I think
Thank you.
yeah, you're very, very
Thank
sharp,
you.
very
Thank
sharp.
you.
Can I ask you, because we've just got to ask about what would it therefore be like working with Snoop Dogg? I mean, again, there's someone who's such a character, such a huge force. Tell us about that moment.
Oh God, and we did pretty much several projects together, but God, he's just funny, and he's really handsome in person. Like he's really handsome in person, and he's tall. He's tall. He's handsome in person. He's really funny, And he always wears his jersey, and that's what it was. It was the jersey that he wore. I did Steve Harvey with him, Bernie Mac with him, and then a commercial with him. So it was a lot. It's a lot of fun, and he's just pretty easy. And I think he even brought most of it was his own thing, like his own necklace, his own chains, his own, because that's his trademark. That's who he is. But I think surprisingly, you don't get nervous around him. People ask me, do I get nervous around actors? And I go, not too much. No, not too much. And because I think you're still, you're doing your job.
Mm-hmm. And so let's think a little bit now about the work from Blackish to Grownish to now #BlackAF.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that relationship with Kenya Barris, because that seems to be a hugely important one in your life at this particular moment. How's that evolved, and how did you get involved in that?
Sorry, my dog now has her toy.
No.
She decided to put her toy in her mouth, and I can hear the noise. Sorry about that. I met Kenya like almost close 7 years ago. Can you hear it?
A little bit, yeah.
Should I go get it?
If you want, that's no problem.
Let me go get it.
My dogs have sat up to look for the toy themselves, actually, while that's happening. I'll just say to everybody, don't forget to post your questions.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. It's a big bone.
She's 14 years old, and she decides today to play with her bone. I mean, I'm not paying her enough attention today or something.
You love it.
And sorry about that, everyone. Sorry. With Kenya, I met him about 7 years ago. I came in. Larry Wilmore was the creator for Bernie Mac, whom is a dear friend, and he brought me in for an interview to meet Kenya. And so I came in to meet him, and we hit it off. It was great. I got hired, and then doing Blackish, because I remember when Larry called me to ask me to do Blackish the pilot. I'm like, what is it called? He's like, Blackish. And I'm like, okay. And it was pretty amazing. Anthony Anderson, Tracy, to see them all come together. I mean, to see the magic, and you can see it now. We're on our, getting ready to start our seventh season. But I remember those days. Just remember those days of them coming in for the interviews, and everybody being so new. And this was Kenya's first big. This was ABC. This was a major network. And it was very, very important to him, extremely important to him, this show was. And he was very involved. He watched every single thing. There was research done on every character. I still have the boards for that. He's very detail oriented. He's right. He has a vision. He knew exactly. And this was based on his life, the story, and his children and his wife. And so I had to even actually interview him to know what his kids were like. And but it was very, not to keep going on, but that relationship started, and then from there from that show, then we went over to Grownish, and then Yara got her own show, and that was amazing, because to see her grow and go into being, now here she was herself being at Harvard. She was there at Harvard, and then also working as an actress, and also a producer for Grownish. She was now wearing a lot of hats. And so, and then Kenya was really involved with this show, because now this was so visual, because there was like 12 or 13 young people, college students, and they all had everybody had a different look. Everybody had a different style. And so I can remember working really long nights on Grownish. Pardon me?
I was just going to say, I've been reading recently about some of the conversation you've had about how it's more difficult to get Emmy recognition for designing for younger people, for teens in Emmys as well.
So because sometimes it's not so much. I think people do recognize Grownish because it blew up. I mean, it was such an amazing show visually, and I got to give a shout out to my assistants. I mean, they worked their butts off, everybody. But it is a little harder because it's on Freeform. And so it's not on a major network. It's not on, it's not on Netflix or any of those type of channels or, that. So it's a little hard. It's a little hard. And then it doesn't come on every year the same time. And so, and people don't realize that doesn't come on. So it's a little harder to try to get the nominations, on that type of show. But it visually, it just blew up that we didn't expect it to just blow out. It really just went off the charts, and everybody loved it. The look of it, the hair, the makeup. It was a really beautiful visual show. And then we went from there, and then Kenya went over to Netflix. And then that's where we started hashtag Black AF. Oh God, is that a mouthful? But then we did that, and that was his first time acting in it. So being an actor, so it was really, really a lot of fun. It was challenging because it was his first show. Being an actor, he was a little nervous. We were all nervous because we really, really wanted this for him. We were really proud of him, and it was head to toe, every detail, the writing, locations, costumes, hair, makeup, everything it's just how he operates. And you're challenged by this type of person. And I love to be challenged. And I think that's what Kenya does. He really does. He collaborates with you, but he also challenges you. And there's a lot of different things that come up inside of you that you're kind of digging for. These visual tools are like, oh, this, oh, that, grabbing here, or just seeing somebody walking on the street and going, oh, I want Yar to have something like, so you're always visually looking around and being aware. If you're going to a museum, if you're going to Paris, or if you're going to Georgia, I'm always constantly looking at people and trying to see new things and new ideas. Are like, oh, look at those socks, of how they have two pairs of socks on with their sneakers, so I'm always looking around and trying to pick up new things. And I think Kenya's he has a lot of confidence. He's a great writer. He's smart, so I think that he's a very talented executive producer. And I think, it's obvious because of what he's done. Yeah.
That research that you do, that sort of visual research of always looking, do you record that in any way? Do you keep notebooks or sketchbooks, or is it all just up in the mind?
I have my assistant is Stanley Hudson, who is from Project Runway, and he loves to draw. So he's always drawing, and he loves watching runway shows. So we've learned to even look at runway shows at work. He loves to do that, and we can't afford all the pieces, but we're like, oh, what about that piece? Oh, what about that piece for Tracy, for Yara, for Rashida Jones? And so the research that we do, we're drawing, we're pulling from social media, we're pulling from all kinds of different places. There's so much out there, so when you're doing, I have tons of books in my garage right now, and libraries, I have them all stacked up, and they're Dior, and I go back to some of those books and look at some of those books. I always tell students, please keep your books, because they're always going to be around. Just keep your books. And I have all my beautiful Givenchy, Ralph Lauren. I collect all of my books, so I can just go sit in my garage, and I have a desk in there, and I kind of just go through and just like, because some of the style never goes out of style. Some of the, Givenchy's never, Dior's never, so they make it everything current, but still that line, those dresses, we still modify them still now, of being with different fabrics and lace and, linen or whatever. But I love looking at old design, because I think almost everything comes from there, Coco Chanel and all of that. But like Alaya, even though it's a current Alaya is beautifully done. It's just kind of a space look, Star Trek kind of a Star Trek look. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I know you spoke before as well, you said you were very heavily influenced by, groups like the Commodores, for example.
Yes.
Yeah. What was it about that? Was it just about that, amazing style, or what was it that inspired you so much about that?
Oh my God. I'm an 80s girl. And so in the 70s, 80s. I mean, just to see like the Commodores, Doobie Brothers, just to see all of those groups and to see to go back and go in their clothes and their closets and just to see all of that. And I grew up where there was Batman and Gilligan's Island and all those type of things and all those old Red Turner shows and things. And I just love the pops of colors. So I don't wear much color personally, but I love it in my shows because I think I grew up with all of that from watching all the 70s group, Commodores, like you said, Isley Brothers, all those groups, and I love the costumes. I just loved, everything was grand, everything was big, and the Temptations and everything, it was a lot of color. So you kind of take from there too, I go to album covers, I'll go to old stores and so I think that you have to be, as a costume designer or a costumer, you have to be resourceful. And I think that's what people don't realize is how much, back when I was doing it, I sound like it's ancient, but back in the 80s, you would go to a public library and I would sit on the floor and they had the Xerox machine. It was like 5 cents a copy, and I was on the floor and just Xerox, all my research. And that's the best part of it for me is the research and doing the work, and you kind of get lost and you kind of, and then you start to see your character come alive a little bit. You start to feel it and to see it come alive. So I think that you have to be resourceful. Album covers, posters, what music, when I'm doing research, I'm looking at what even the music was back then, so I can see what was going on back then. But I love looking at it, all of that.
Do you think there's still a value, though, in doing some of that more old school kind of research now? Because it's so easy, isn't it, to go on Google, but there is something very visceral and exciting about going back to a book or...
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think books are really great. You can, you'll probably go to most designers' room and you'll see tons of books. We're still... if you go to anybody's, you'll see them pulling out a book and opening it. There's something still about the book it's resourceful, because it probably one of the days may go away, but it's still around. So enjoy it.
Absolutely. It's getting close time for student questions. So I'm just going to put another call out there to say, if you've got a question and you're out watching, please do type it into the Q&A and we'll come to you a little bit later. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you about your personal workspace as well, because I've heard stories of your cage and I'm just curious about, what is that like? What's an average day in your cage like? Who works there? And I'm imagining you're missing it enormously at the moment.
The cage. Well, Blackish, because every room, every designer has their rooms, So we have ABC built this huge building, and it's a cage. And if you're going out to Warner Brothers or different places, you always see that everybody's in a cage at Warner Brothers in different places. And but we call it the cage at Blackish. But it has all their closets. All their closets are there, all the actors, and it gets pretty packed, pretty full, from Tracy's closet to Anthony's closet to all their closet, all the kids' closet, and all the actors' closets. And so once it gets used a lot, then because it gets really packed, we have to take it out and put it into a storage bin. And so, but the cages has Stanley's there, my Stanley Hudson. He's there, my tailor's there. We have all the rooms, the fitting rooms are there. So and all of our offices are upstairs. So this is our playground for 9 months a year. So you make it your home. We have a kitchen, we have a kitchen there. So we have our lunches there. And there's a Starbucks that's on campus. So we get to go to Starbucks as well. So that's good. But it's home, it's where we are. And then over at Black AF, we're on a trailer. Where that show calls for us to be on a trailer a lot more. So our home is on a trailer there. Each show, and then Grownish is next door, and Grownish is in rooms. So they're in offices. They took some offices and built closets in them. So we're in offices over there. So you adapt to each place that you go to, so each studio, and every studio has a different place. So, but the cage I have a great crew there, and it's really close quarters. But I love it. I've learned to like it. But at the beginning of my career there, I was like, this cage thing is not working. And now we've kind of gotten used to it, but I love it.
And is it because, I mean, I know from talking to a lot of costume designers this year, organization, management, people skills, there are a set of skills that a lot of people overlook, actually, it seems, when they're deciding to go into it. Is that a place where you really see those kind of skills come into their own in terms of how you organize that space?
Well, the good thing is, and this is getting back, the good thing is when you start at rock bottom, like I really got out of college and I started in the stock room of Young and the Restless. And so I stayed a year in the Young Restless, and I learned how to organize, because that designer, I learned how to organize a cage, and they were in a cage as well. So your evening gowns got packed, and your shoes were here, the colors, actors, the tape, everything, their name inside the shoe. So I think when you work, that's what people don't realize, is all the little details like that and everybody sometimes wants to be a designer, but they don't understand there's these steps that you have to, you don't have to learn, but there's these steps that are very important as a designer that you learn. And I think organization is huge, because sometimes your space is not that big. Yeah. And if you're on a trailer, like we did on Black AF, our trailer we were all on the trailer. So there, and then we had the closets on the trailer. So we were crammed on a trailer. So you have to have organization, people skills, everything. Your producers come through. They want to see some of the clothes. Your producers come through. And I think I always say that costume designing is about talent. It is. But it is also about, you're talking to executives, you're doing meetings with executives of studios, you're creators of your shows. You're spending a lot of time trying to get notes from them, because they're really busy. You have to learn how to kind of sneak. I would when I would hear Kenya was walking in front of the cage, if I would hear rumors, I would call his secretary or assistant saying, "Do you know when Kenya's coming by?" And he would walk by, and when he would walk by, I would stand outside. So I could grab him and bring him in to show him certain things, because he's such a busy person. So we do, because everybody's time is really is small. So getting back to the cage, is that you have to learn to do a lot of different things, as far as research, talking to your producers, having the confidence to go in, talking to your actors, having your fittings. It's a really big, wide picture than just having the talent. Talent is very important, but it's a lot bigger than that. And I don't think people realize how big it is.
Yeah, the diplomacy, the people,
managing, and knowing when the right time to go in to talk to an actress. When there are an actor, maybe having a bad day, and when to slide in to ask, or to sit back a little bit. So it's having all these, taking these clues from watching and observing. So it's something you learn. It's something that you learn from other designers, and watching other designers, and picking up your own style, because everybody has their own style. And I don't complain about anybody else's, but every designer has their own style, how they get their day done. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's fantastic advice, particularly for the potential costume designers out there who are listening right now.
Yeah. I think starting from the beginning is very, very important. Starting from the beginning.
Well, at this point, let's start to be a little bit more connected with the students who are watching.
Okay, great.
So I can see when we had the poll, the thing that people would like to know more about was the 1991 Chanel show. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, I was on In Living Color, and that was the Fly Girls. And what my executive producer, what she loved to do, she loved looking at women's wear daily. That was her thing. She loved looking at magazines, and I didn't have time for it. And she brought the article down and put it in front of me. She said, you've made it when you have Chanel copying the Fly Girls. And I think I still have the article somewhere. And that's when they started doing certain, looks like the Fly Girls. Because the Fly Girls, everybody wanted to be. When people find out I was on that I did In Living Color, everybody's like, Oh, I wanted to be a fly girl. I go, I know. Everybody wanted to be a fly girl. So, but yes, that's how that story came up, because I didn't know anything about it. And that's one of the things that she would do. She would just collect all these articles about when people would, when they would come, like when people would just dress as fly girls or something, and then people do it for Halloween. And, so the fly girls were the thing. They were big.
But
And it was great because we shopped a lot in New York for them.
But what a remarkable career, though, Michelle. I mean, even in this past hour or so, the different points that we've looked at there, from Whitney Houston to Snoop Dogg to these huge shows, Blackish, Grownish, #BlackAF, to having Chanel copy your work. I mean, is there a greater honor than that? I don't think that there could be, could there?
And you learn from, and I think you totally get inspired by people. And it's like, and in one of my commercials, I think we had Miles Davis. And just the same, he was like, his taste level, I mean, he was impeccable. And just the way he did, I styled him for many years, and just learning his taste and how he dressed, and even down to the glasses. And I just saw a documentary on him. It's just like you get inspired by, you take little pieces of them with you when you're doing and you can see the glasses, and nowadays you can see those same glasses that he wore, but they're different, so, and, but and I can look at my assistant, someone did an article the other day, and we watched the Fly Girls for 30 minutes. I had a clipping of all the Fly Girls for 30 minutes, and my assistant, who's now a designer, she called me and she says, "Oh my God, Michelle, we were so good." And I was because you forget of all the clothes that you had to buy for that show for them. I mean, we did a lot of shopping. And that was 30 years ago. So you're just like, I don't know how we did it. I had a great crew then. I've always had a great crew. So, I mean, everything to this point in my whole life, I have said this many times, that the show that created everything probably was In Living Color. That was my very first show. So everything has always gone back to that show. All the writers have taken me to do their shows, and I've been extremely blessed to have that as my first show, because that has definitely been the root, the trunk, and there's these branches that come out, and that is the Black AF, the Blackish, the Grownish, the Steve Harvey and Mark, and and that was my first show. And so it's I don't know how to explain. People go, I don't know how to explain that, but it's been a very wonderful career.
It's incredibly inspiring. So let's go to some student questions then, now that we've talked about the poll. So who has been the most, this is Sarah, and Sarah says, who's been the most influential person you've worked with in your career?
I got many.
You got a lot.
I do. I mean, the most. You mean like it's whom am I working with? I mean,
I think influential to you, someone who's maybe inspired you.
Oh, it probably would be. I mean, I know this sounds corny, but it would probably be my grandmother. Probably because that's how I learned to. They were from Kentucky, so I learned you didn't wear patent in the winter, and that you wore seersucker in the spring, in the summer. But I think it was my grandmother had great taste, gloves to going to church and watching her get dressed and seasonal, and I think the level of what you had when you didn't have a lot of money, the brooches, the pens, the accessories that I grew up with. I definitely think that she was a huge part of my life as far as clothing. God, there's so many. Like I love Audrey Hepburn. I love there's so many, and I can't even think of it. I'm so sorry that I can't.
No, they're great. They're great, and I'm sure there'll be answers that resonate a lot with our students too. I mean, if you talk to students.
I think when I go, how I approach things in my life is I take something away from even the worst situation. You kind of take something away from that because you learn from that. even in the hardest job, the most difficult job, or the hardest person to work with or something, you kind of still take something with you, how you can make it better the next time, or this or whatever. So I think that probably a lot of people have inspired me, like from Keenan Ivory Wayne's, you know, being the mastermind behind, you know, in Living Color, to Larry Wilmore for Bernie Mac, you know, from Kenya Barris. There's so many people for me, but I think I draw from each and every one of them.
Well, we've got another question here, which is from Catherine, and she's asking, what's the most difficult costume that you've had to design over the years?
Oh, and that one's a good one. That one's a very good one. Yeah, I did two. I did where Jamie Foxx had to wear Prince outfit, and it was purple. No, Eddie Murphy, and then the booty was out, the butt was out. And that was custom, and we had to really work with Jamie Foxx's butt when he did this costume. It was a purple costume. And then because in Living Color made you do a lot of things, and Keenan Ivory Wayne's wrote something where we had to do a tampon dress, and we had to, yes. And we had to put tampons all around her dress. Yes. And that was weird, but that was like probably those two costumes are like the ones, and fitting Jamie Foxx on almost all of his ugly women. He was crazy and a lot of fun, and trying to keep him still to do all of his women stuff. Yeah, those are great costumes, a lot of fun.
And then Lizzie is asking, what is the day-to-day like when designing costumes for a TV show?
Day-to-day like, okay, I get up at 4:30. I get up at 4:30. I usually get it set about 6 o'clock. The actors are there about like 5:30. So I'm there in the morning, 6 or 6:30. Then we go into our meetings. Usually there's a production meeting, concept meeting. And then pretty much we start to do our meeting in my department. And then we go through, if there's a new script, we have to read a new script, because when you're doing comedy, there's almost a new script almost every day, because they're trying to figure it out and make it funny. So you have a script almost every day. So we read our new script, and then we sit down as a group, who's going where, who's going shopping, who's staying behind, who's going to go pull at rental houses, who's going out shopping, who's going downtown to look for fabric. So everybody kind of, and then they check in and send pictures to me throughout the day. So it's nonstop to do these shows. To do 30 minutes single camera shows are really hard. They're really fast. You're probably eating your lunch every day walking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's nonstop. It's busy. I get home probably not too bad, maybe 7:30 or 8, depending if like Tracy Ross has a fitting. If sometimes she has later fittings, and then I stay for her fittings. And then there's fittings all day. There's fittings all day. So it is quite busy being on a single camera show. And Sharon Davis, who's costume designer for Dreamgirls, she saw one of my shows on Blackish. She saw my Halloween show, and she called me up and she says, "I don't know how you did it. I don't know how you did build 11 costumes in your limited time," and it is challenging, but that's the part that I love. I love navigating throughout the week of how to get to the end, because on Fridays our rack is done to go to the trailer to be shot on Monday. So by Friday my rack is completed from head to toe, and then it goes out, and then Monday we start shooting the next show. So you're shooting every Monday, so it goes really fast.
Constant cycle.
It's a cycle.
We've got time for maybe one more question, but before we do that, I do just want to remind people that you're on Instagram. So we can encourage people to sign up for your Instagram, Michelle Cole Costume Design. And Michelle is spelled with 2 L's, don't forget that. So Michelle Cole Costume Design. Do join in and see what's going on Instagram with Michelle. But let's have one last question. from Avery Amoni, who's saying, what do you do to keep your ideas organized and to stay on schedule when you're working on multiple costumes?
Multiple costume, or multiple shows, multiple costumes?
Well, multiple shows as well, because I know
Yeah.
you do quite a few at one time, don't you? Yeah.
Well, that's a very good question. Well, that takes training, because I didn't start off doing 2 and 3 shows when I first started. I've been doing this 40 years. So the first 20 years, I only did 1 show at a time. And then as you start to, then you start to learn to juggle shows. But to answer the question is how do you get the multiple, how do you stay? It's here. I don't know how to explain it. It is, I'm a morning person. I get up when I have a thought. I'm known to, everybody laughs, I'm known to email you because I can't text you because you're asleep. I'll email you my thoughts, my assistants. I'll email everybody like 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. So that is my way. Once once it comes into me, once the vision or something I'm seeing, then I have to release it. I have to put it away. I have to put it on paper somewhere. I got it. That way I won't forget it. So usually I will email one of my assistants, one of my top assistants, and our producer, and say, okay, what about this? Yeah, so I'll get these thoughts like in the middle of the night. And that's just kind of how I operate. And then I make a file. I have a file for myself with all my thoughts. I still like seeing photos and things, in social media, but I have somebody files all of it for me. But pretty much, if I think of a character, it's here, or it's in my gut. It's my instincts. I base a lot of my design on my instincts. When I look back at some of the things, I'm like, God, where did I come up with that? And so I'm spur of the moment. And I think that's the reason why television works for me than maybe a feature. Because when I have done a feature, I prepped it so fast. It was prepped and I was bored. Mm-hmm. Then I was like, okay, it's done, because I'm so used to going from commercials. My world has been commercial and television, that it's fast. So for me to do a feature, I had already prepped it in like 3 weeks, and I was like, okay, done. So the visual is, I already know, kind of, for me, it works for me, where I think everybody has a way of how they do it. Mm-hmm. You could probably get 10 designers here, and we all have a different way of processing that. And I think that's what makes us all unique, is how we process our vision.
Well, that's so fantastic. Thank you so much, Michelle. We've run out of time. There's still so many questions that were there to be answered, but I know we'll have the pleasure of welcoming you back again. I certainly hope so at some point in the future.
Yes, and I've had so much fun, and I just wish you all the best, each and every one of you, and and just have the confidence, just go for it. Just really, this is what you want. Just go for it. You will make the money will come. I always say that to people. People are like always wanting to make money, and I go, it will come. It will come. Mm-hmm.
But we really appreciate it, and thank you for helping everybody along that journey, in your own special way today, and for everything else. Last time I saw you properly was in Atlanta, and the world looked very different then. So
it did. Thank you for having me, and I hope to come back. No, and if anybody ever wants to, send me anything, or or email or reach out or something like that, they're more than welcome to.
Fantastic. Well, the first place everyone should start to do that is Michelle Cole Costume Design on Instagram. But the last thing I just need to say is tomorrow at 11 a.m., we'll be navigating the international students journey with director Luke Lee. So have a look at Guests and Gusto to see what's happening tomorrow at 11 a.m. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye to Michelle. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody watching at home, and we'll see you all next time, I hope. Bye-bye for now, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.